Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I still remember the day I packed up everything I owned into the back of my old gray Honda and left my hometown in Missouri behind. I'd just graduated, and after months of sending out resumes, I finally landed my first real job, a position at a growing logistics company in Cleveland, Ohio. It felt like everything I'd worked for was finally paying off. Leaving home wasn't easy. My parents were proud, but my mom cried the night before I left. She kept saying, "Just promise you'll call every Sunday, okay?" I promised. Back then, I never thought those words would matter as much as they later did. The company offered to help new hires relocate, which was great, because rent in the city wasn't cheap. They partnered with a few apartment complexes that housed employees. So when HR asked if I'd be open to sharing a 2-bedroom place with another new hire, I said sure. I figured it would be nice to know someone going through the same thing. That's how I met Connor Wells. He was from Oregon, a tall, sandy-haired guy who always wore expensive sneakers and had a kind of fake confidence about him. We first met during the onboarding week, and he seemed friendly enough. He talked a lot about how he'd crushed his college internships and how he already had ideas to streamline department efficiency. He had that buzzword kind of energy that makes managers love you, but co-workers roll their eyes. Still, I tried to stay neutral. I was just happy to start my new job. Our apartment was in a new building downtown, modern, clean, and quiet. It had a big shared living room with a kitchen that looked straight out of an IKEA catalog. My room was on the right, Connor's on the left. The place even had a little balcony that overlooked the parking lot. For the first few weeks, things were fine. We were both busy with work, and since we were in the same department, we saw each other all day anyway. He was more of a talker at the office, always trying to impress the boss, always volunteering for stuff, while I was the kind of guy who preferred just doing the work quietly and getting things done. The first time I got a weird feeling about Connor was over something small. It was a Friday night, maybe 3 weeks in. He'd asked if I wanted to go out for drinks with some coworkers. I said I was too tired and had to catch up on a few tasks. He kind of smirked and said, "You know, dude, you can't get promoted sitting behind your laptop all night." I laughed it off, but there was something condescending in his tone, like he thought he was already above me. Later that night, I heard him come in drunk around 2 a.m. He dropped something, a bottle maybe, and started mumbling loudly in the living room. I was about to get up and tell him to keep it down when I heard him mutter something that made my stomach twist. "Guy thinks he's better than me. Loser." I froze in bed, wondering if I'd heard it right. Maybe he wasn't even talking about me, I told myself. I brushed it off. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. My toothbrush would be moved slightly from where I kept it. My laptop charger was sometimes unplugged in the morning, even though I'd left it charging overnight. Once I found my favorite mug, the one my sister gave me, shattered in the sink. When I asked Connor about it, he shrugged and said, "Dude, maybe you dropped it and forgot." That irritated me, but again, I didn't want to start a war over something that might have been an accident. Then one morning I woke up late, like really late. My phone alarm never went off and my phone was completely dead. I was certain I'd plugged it in before sleeping. I'm obsessive about that. But the charger cable was halfway pulled out of the wall. I made it to work just on time, sweaty and panicked. I told Connor about it later that night, trying to sound casual. "Hey, you didn't happen to unplug my phone last night, did you?" The charger was halfway out of the wall when I woke up. He looked up from his cereal and gave me this weird grin. "Why the hell would I unplug your phone?" "I don't know, man." "Maybe it got bumped or something." He shrugged again. "Sounds like a you problem. Maybe set 2 alarms next time." The way he said it, smug, dismissive, rubbed me the wrong way. After that, I started feeling uneasy around him. I'd come home and find the thermostat set to freezing, or the bathroom light left on all night. One time, I came home early and saw him in my room. He jumped like he'd been caught doing something. I said, "Dude, what the hell are you doing in my room?" He smiled awkwardly. "Oh, I was just checking if you borrowed my notebook." "Chill out," I told him to stay out of my room, but he just gave me that grin again, like he enjoyed getting under my skin. A few nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. and saw a faint light under my bedroom door, the kind of flickering glow from the living room TV. I got up to grab some water, and as I opened my door, I saw Connor standing near the kitchen counter. He wasn't watching TV. He was just standing there, completely still. His face was turned toward my door, but he didn't move, didn't blink. Just stared for maybe 3 seconds before he said quietly, "Couldn't sleep." "Don't freak out." Then he went back to his room. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day at work, he acted totally normal, cracking jokes with coworkers, talking about how he grinded late on a client report. I started to wonder if maybe I was losing it. Maybe I really was just paranoid from all the stress of moving and the job. But then, something happened that took away all doubt. One Thursday morning, I woke up and saw all my work files scattered across the floor. The manila folders I'd organized the night before were completely rearranged, pages out of order, some even torn. I shouted, "You've got to be kidding me," loud enough that Connor came out of his room. He looked at the mess, then at me, and smirked. "What, did a ghost knock your shit over?" I stepped closer. "You think this is funny? Did you come into my room again?" He chuckled. "Man, you need to chill, you're losing it. I'm serious, Connor. Don't touch my stuff." He just rolled his eyes and walked off, muttering, "Maybe lock your door next time, genius." Thing was, our bedroom doors didn't have locks. Only the bathroom did. After that, I started taking precautions. I'd hide my work laptop and files under the bed, keep my phone under my pillow while I slept, and push a chair against the inside of my door so it'd make noise if anyone tried to open it. For a few nights, nothing happened. I started to relax. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up because I heard the faintest creak, like someone trying to move quietly on the wooden floor near my bed. My heart was pounding. I kept my eyes half open, pretending to be asleep, and that's when I saw him. A shadow inched closer. Connor. I could see the outline of his hoodie in the faint light from the window. He was crouched near my desk. I waited a few seconds, then flicked on my bedside lamp. "Connor, what the hell are you doing?" He froze, then bolted out of the room. I jumped up and chased him down the hall. He slammed his bedroom door shut before I got there. I banged on the door. "Open the damn door, man. What were you doing in my room?" No answer. "Connor, I saw you." Finally, he yelled, "You're out of your mind. You're imagining things." I stood there breathing hard, adrenaline shaking my hands. I knew then that I needed to move out. But the lease was joint, and management told us early on that breaking it would mean paying a huge fee, unless both tenants agreed. The next few days were tense. Connor didn't talk to me, didn't even look at me at work. He started sitting at a different table during lunch. I could feel him watching me sometimes, though. That quiet, eerie kind of stare that made your skin crawl. Then, out of nowhere, he didn't show up to work one day. By lunchtime, word spread. He'd been fired. Apparently, one of our coworkers had reported him for sending her weird messages. HR called it harassment. When I got home that evening, I felt an enormous sense of relief. Maybe now I could finally breathe again. But that relief didn't last. When I opened the apartment door, my heart sank. The place was destroyed. Cushions slashed, the TV screen shattered, lamps knocked over. My room looked like a tornado hit it. Clothes ripped from hangers, my mattress flipped, drawers dumped onto the floor. My laptop was gone. I called the apartment manager immediately and filed a police report. They said they'd pursue legal action since the damage was extensive and Connor's name was still on the lease. I sent them all the photos I took, shaking as I did it. I spent that night at a coworker's place. I couldn't stay there anymore. For weeks afterward, I jumped every time I heard footsteps in my hallway or the click of a door down the hall. The cops never found my laptop, and Connor never came back to the building. I later learned from a neighbor that he'd been seen carrying garbage bags out to his car around 2 a.m. the night before he was fired. He must have known he was getting terminated and decided to make me pay for it. To this day, I still don't understand what triggered his hatred. Maybe he thought I was competition. Maybe he was just sick in the head. All I know is, I double-check every lock before I go to bed now. And I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night convinced I hear someone moving quietly across my floor. I still remember the first night I moved into my dorm at Northland University. It was mid-August. The air was thick and humid, and the entire campus buzzed with that nervous excitement only freshmen can understand. I'd driven 6 hours from my hometown in Missouri with my parents' old Ford Escape packed to the roof. Suitcases, boxes, a mini fridge, and a cheap Walmart lamp that I'd convinced myself would make my new dorm feel like home. My roommate's name was Darren Cole. The housing office had matched us randomly, and I didn't know a thing about him except what was on a small card they gave me. Hometown, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Major, mechanical engineering. When I first opened the door to room 213B, Darren was already there, sitting on his bed with headphones in. He didn't look up right away, just gave a quick nod like I'd interrupted something. Hey man, I'm Jordan, I said, dropping my duffel bag beside the bed. He finally pulled one headphone out and glanced over. Yeah, Darren. That was it. No smile, no handshake. He went right back to his laptop. I tried not to take it personally. Everyone handles college differently, I figured. Some people are nervous, others overconfident. Maybe he was just the quiet type. For the first few days, we didn't talk much. He wasn't rude exactly. Just distant, like he was constantly thinking about something else. Our room was always spotless, and he never made noise. He'd leave early in the morning, come back late, and usually spend hours just staring at his computer screen with the curtains drawn. I remember calling my mom one evening. Yeah, he's quiet, I said, trying to downplay how weird it felt. She laughed. That's better than loud, right? At least he's clean. Yeah, I said, forcing a laugh. Yeah, that's true. For the most part, I didn't mind the silence. I had my own group of friends by then, guys from my English class, a girl named Lisa from the next floor, and I was starting to settle in. I'd hang out in the common lounge, play ping pong, talk about classes and stupid campus rumors. By the time I'd come back, Darren was usually gone for the weekend. It was comfortable. Until that one night in late October. That Friday had been long. Midterms were coming up, and I'd spent most of the day in the library. When I got back to the dorm around 8, Darren wasn't there. His bed was neatly made as usual, and his laptop sat closed on his desk. Probably went home again. I mumbled to myself. I threw my backpack down, plugged in my headphones, and started gaming. It was quiet. Too quiet, actually. And I remember how the old radiator made this faint ticking sound that filled the room when the heat kicked in. Around 11, I finally leaned back, stretched, and decided to go to bed. I pulled off my headset, turned toward my bed, and that's when I saw it. Movement. It was subtle, just a flicker of motion near the other side of the room. I froze, staring at the dark space beneath Darren's bed. His mini fridge was down there along with a couple of storage bins, but I could have sworn something shifted. I blinked, leaned forward a little. Then I saw it again. Something human. A hand. I jolted backward, my heart jumping into my throat. What the hell? Then Darren's voice came from the shadows. Oh, you saw me. He crawled out slowly, his expression unreadable. His hoodie was half unzipped, his hair flattened like he'd been lying there for hours. Dude, I said, trying to laugh, but my voice cracked. What the hell are you doing under there? He looked embarrassed for half a second, then smirked. Just messing around, man. Wanted to see if you'd notice for 3 hours? He shrugged. Guess I lost track of time. I just stared at him, waiting for him to laugh or explain more. But he didn't. He brushed some dust off his hoodie, said, "I'm gonna brush my teeth," and left the room like it was the most normal thing in the world. I sat there for a long time after that, trying to figure out what the hell that had been about. When he came back, I pretended to be on my phone. He got into bed, turned off his lamp, and that was that. For a few weeks, everything went back to normal. Darren barely spoke, barely made noise, and I convinced myself it was just some weird prank. I told Lisa about it once while we were walking to class. "He hid under your bed?" she said, laughing but clearly unsettled. "No, his bed. He was under his bed. That's even weirder." "Yeah? Jordan, that's not just weird. That's creepy as hell." I didn't disagree. Then, about a month later, things got worse. It was a Wednesday night. I remember because I had a paper due that Friday, and I'd stayed up later than usual typing it. Darren came in around 10, dropped his bag on the floor, and went straight to the bathroom without saying a word. When he came back, I was still at my desk. He sat down on his bed and just stared. Not at me. Just forward, like he was watching something I couldn't see. "You good, man?" I asked finally. He blinked, looked at me like he'd just realized I was there. "Yeah, just tired." He turned off his lamp and laid down. By midnight, I was half asleep when I heard something. A faint metallic sound, like something tapping against the bed frame. I opened my eyes, but the room was pitch dark. At first, I thought maybe he was fixing something again, but the noise stopped. Then came silence. I started drifting again, until I got that cold, unmistakable feeling that I wasn't alone. When I turned my head, my heart nearly stopped. Darren was standing beside my bed. His outline was just visible against the faint glow from the hallway light slipping through the door crack. His face was blank, eyes fixed on me. And in his hand, he was holding something heavy and dark. A hammer. I flinched backward instinctively, my sheets tangling around my legs. "What the hell, Darren?" He didn't move at first. Then slowly he lowered the hammer. "Relax," he said quietly. "I was just fixing my bed." "Loose nail, in the dark," I snapped. "You were standing over me, dude." He blinked like he couldn't understand why I was upset. "You were moving around." "I thought I woke you up." I stared at him for a long time. His tone was calm. Too calm. My heart was slamming in my chest. "Just go back to bed," I said finally. "Please." He nodded, muttered something like, "Sorry," and climbed back into his bed. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat awake until the sun came up, every tiny sound making my chest tighten. The next morning, I went straight to housing services and asked for a room transfer. I didn't tell them everything, just said I wasn't comfortable anymore. They said it might take a week or two to process. That night, I locked myself in the room until I could stay with a friend in another building. I told Darren I had a group project and wouldn't be around for a few nights. He just nodded. When I finally got approval to move, I waited until he was gone for class, packed all my stuff, and left without saying goodbye. I didn't tell anyone where I moved. I didn't even walk past that hallway again. Months later, I heard through someone on campus that Darren had been suspended. Something about an incident in the dorms. They wouldn't say what happened, and I didn't ask. But sometimes, late at night, I still see that image in my mind. Him standing in the dark, hammer in hand, staring down at me like he'd already decided something, and I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't woken up? I never really wanted to live in the dorms. I remember standing in front of that 6-story red brick building at the edge of campus, suitcase in one hand, my mom behind me asking if I was sure I'd packed my toothbrush. I just nodded, pretending I wasn't nervous. The place looked older than I expected. Peeling paint, a flickering exit light over the glass doors, and a smell that hit me the second I walked in. It was that mix of cleaning spray and stale popcorn that you only find in college dorms. My name's Elena Brooks, and this happened during my freshman year at Northlake University, a medium-sized school in Indiana. I'd been assigned a random roommate named Tessa. Never met her, never talked to her. The only thing the school sent was her name and the room number, B213. When I arrived, half the room was already filled. There was a neatly made bed on the left, a suitcase tucked underneath, and a few decorative items, a string of fairy lights, a photo of some lake taped to the wall, and a candle she wasn't supposed to have. I remember thinking, great, she's one of those girls who's gonna FaceTime her boyfriend all night. But when Tessa finally showed up, she wasn't what I expected. She was tall, thin, blonde hair tied up in a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes. She barely made eye contact when she walked in, just said, "Hey, you must be Elena, right?" "Yeah," I said, smiling awkwardly. "Hey." She tossed her duffel on the bed. "Cool. I'll keep the left side. You cool with that?" "Yeah, that's fine." That was it. That was the entire first conversation. No small talk, no where you from, nothing. Over the next few days, she was barely around. She'd disappear in the morning before I got up and wouldn't come back until after midnight. Sometimes I'd hear the door quietly open, her footsteps soft on the carpet, then her bed creaking as she climbed in. She never turned on the light, never said anything. At first, I didn't care. I figured maybe she was just busy or had friends already. College was weird like that. Some people just dove right in. But it got stranger when I realized I'd gone nearly 2 weeks without seeing her in daylight. There were little things too, the smell. Every night, faint perfume, something floral but sharp, like gardenia mixed with smoke. And her phone would vibrate constantly when she was gone. Once, I saw it light up. Unknown caller. Over and over. I remember one night vividly. It was a Thursday, raining outside, and I was sitting at my desk finishing an essay. It was almost midnight, and the door suddenly rattled like someone was trying to open it quietly. When it opened, Tessa slipped in, soaking wet, hoodie drenched. She looked startled when she saw I was still awake. "Oh, hey," she said, freezing in the doorway. "Hey," I said, trying not to sound awkward. "You okay?" "It's pouring out." She hesitated. "Yeah, just took a walk." "At midnight?" She shrugged. "I like the rain." Then she went to bed, fully dressed, wet clothes and all. The next morning she was gone again. A few days later, all her stuff disappeared. I came back from class, opened the door, and her side of the room was completely empty. No fairy lights, no photo, no candle. Just the dent in the carpet where her bed frame had been. I texted her immediately. "Hey, did you move out or something?" No response. I waited. 1 day turned into 2. 2 turned into a week. Nothing. At first, I thought maybe she dropped out or switched rooms. The dorm office said her name was still registered to the room, but students sometimes take temporary leave. That didn't make much sense, but I didn't push it. I wasn't complaining either. I basically had a single room now. I rearranged everything, pushed my bed to the center, brought in a small bookshelf, even hung some posters. It felt like my own place finally. For months it stayed that way. I started to forget about her entirely until April. It was a Sunday night, and I had a midterm the next morning. I went to bed around 11:30, dead tired. Around 2 a.m., I woke up because I heard the sound of keys jingling outside my door. Then, the faint click of the lock turning. I froze. Someone was unlocking my door. The knob turned, and the door creaked open just a little. The hallway light spilled in, and I could see a silhouette. Thin, female, holding bags. I sat up, heart pounding. "Who's there?" I whispered. The door opened fully, and I saw her face. "Tessa?" She looked exactly the same, maybe a little paler, eyes sunken deeper. She stepped in like she owned the place, dropped a duffel bag on the floor and said, "What the hell did you do to the room?" "What?" I sat up, completely confused. Why is my stuff gone? Where's my bed? You left, I said, my voice shaking a little. You've been gone for 6 months. She just stared at me like I was speaking another language. I was at my boyfriend's, she said flatly. Okay, but you didn't tell me that, I replied, trying to stay calm. You never texted back. I thought you moved out. She sighed. I didn't get your text. My phone broke. She dropped her wet jacket on the floor, started unpacking her bags right there. Clothes everywhere, books, even a framed picture of her and some guy both smiling in front of a lake. Tessa, you can't just show up like this. It's the middle of the night, I said. She gave me this cold look. It's my room too, remember? Something about the way she said it gave me chills. The next morning, I went straight to housing services and asked for a transfer. They said it might take a few days. So for that week, I had to live with her again. And that's when things got wrong. She barely slept. She'd sit on her bed, scrolling through her phone with no sound, for hours. Sometimes I'd wake up and see her just staring at the wall. One night, I woke to her whispering something under her breath. I thought she was on the phone until I realized there was no light, no phone in her hand. Just her voice. Tessa, I whispered. No response. She kept whispering, faster now. I caught fragments. He's not gone. I saw him. He was in the window. I turned on the lamp. She was sitting cross-legged, facing the wall, eyes open wide. Tessa, are you okay? She slowly turned toward me, expression blank. Do you ever feel like someone's still in the room? Even when you know they're not? I didn't answer. I just got up and left the room, went to the lounge downstairs and stayed there until morning. A few days later, she was gone again. But this time, her stuff was still there. Her phone sat on the desk, still unlocked. Out of sheer anxiety, I looked. There were dozens of messages from a contact named E. The last few were unread. You can't keep ignoring me. You said you saw me in your dreams again. He's gone, Tessa. Let him go. The last message was sent 2 days before she came back. That night I heard something under her bed. A faint scratching sound. I froze. The sound moved. Slow, rhythmic, like fabric dragging. I forced myself to look. There was nothing under there, just a few boxes, her suitcase, and the faint smell of something sour, metallic. By the time housing finally moved me to another dorm, I didn't care where I ended up. 2 weeks later, the resident advisor told me that campus police had found Tessa's things still in the room, untouched. She never came back for them. Her ex-boyfriend, the one in the photo, had died in a car accident last semester, the week she disappeared. No one saw her on campus after that night she showed up at my door. Sometimes, when I think back to that night, her opening the door at 2 a.m., whispering that eerie question, I still get chills, because I keep remembering the faint, muddy footprints on the carpet that led from the door to her bed, but none leading back out. I never thought moving into that little apartment on the west side of town would change my life the way it did. When I first signed the lease, I was desperate. I had just moved to Cincinnati after graduating from college, working a small job at a dental clinic that barely covered my rent. My old apartment was nice but expensive, so when I saw a listing for a 2-bedroom for $900 total, I jumped on it. The ad said female roommate wanted clean, chill, no drama. That's how I met Lena. She was my age, mid-20s, tan skin, bleach blonde hair with dark roots, a nose ring, and the kind of half-lazy smile that made you think she didn't take anything seriously. She told me she worked at a gas station down on Vine Street. She seemed normal enough, polite, a little distant, but not rude. The apartment itself wasn't much. It had a musty smell that no amount of Febreze could fix, thin walls, and a flickering light in the kitchen that buzzed constantly. Still, it was something. The first couple weeks went fine. We made small talk in the kitchen sometimes. She'd tell me about annoying customers at work, and I'd tell her about my boss at the clinic. But we were never really friends. Just two people sharing the same space, trying to get by. Then I got lucky. I got promoted. It wasn't huge money, but it meant I could finally start thinking about getting my own place. I didn't tell Lena at first. She'd been complaining about how broke she was, how she hated her job, how she was thinking of quitting. I didn't want to sound like I was bragging. But a few weeks later, she stopped going to work. At first, I didn't notice much. I was gone during the day, and when I came home, she was usually watching TV in the living room or scrolling through her phone. I asked her one night, "You off today?" She looked up from the couch, her hoodie pulled over her head. "Yeah, got fired. Oh, damn, sorry. What happened?" She shrugged. "My manager's a dick. That's all I told her. I hoped she'd find something soon." She didn't say much after that. Over the next few weeks, things started feeling off. She was home constantly, sleeping until noon, inviting people over late at night, guys I'd never seen before, one of them with a neck tattoo that looked like a spider crawling up his throat. I tried to stay out of it. I didn't want trouble. I just kept my door locked and counted the months till the lease was up. Then one night, everything changed. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had stayed late at work and grabbed takeout on the way home. Lena wasn't there when I got in. The apartment was quiet. I ate, showered, and started watching Netflix when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lena. "Lena, hey, can you come get me, please?" I frowned. "Me? What's going on? Where are you?" No response for a few seconds, then my phone started ringing. "Lena?" I said when I answered. Her voice was shaky. "I need you to come get me, please. I'm stranded. Where are you?" I don't know," she stammered. "Somewhere near Mill Creek Park. My car broke down and I tried to walk, but I got lost." "Wait, Mill Creek? That's like 10 minutes away. How did you end up there?" "I was going to this new job," she said between little sobs. "Please, can you just come get me?" I'm scared her crying sounded real, raw, desperate. "All right," I said. "Send me your location." She texted me a pin. I looked at the map. She was deep inside Mill Creek Park near the lake. That park wasn't great at night. There weren't any lights except near the parking lot, and the area around the lake was mostly woods. Still, I grabbed my keys and headed out. When I pulled in, the parking lot was empty except for one broken light flickering near the edge. My stomach tightened. I called her. "Okay, I'm here." "Where are you exactly?" I walked down the path a little. "You'll see a trail near the lake. Just come down that way." "You went into the woods?" "I didn't mean to." "Please just come, I'm freezing." I sighed and grabbed my phone flashlight. "All right, I'm coming. Just keep talking, okay?" I walked down the dirt path. The crunch of gravel under my shoes sounded way too loud. My flashlight cut through the dark, showing only trees and empty trail. "Lena?" I called out. "Can you hear me?" No answer. I walked a little farther, staring at the little blue dot on my screen that showed her location. It wasn't far, maybe a couple 100 feet ahead. Then I heard it, a rustle in the trees. "Lena?" Nothing. Just another sound, like a branch snapping. My heart started pounding. I turned in a slow circle, flashlight shaking slightly in my hand. That's when I saw him. A man stepping out from behind a tree about 30 feet away, wearing a dark hoodie, his hands in his pockets. I froze. Hey," I called, trying to sound brave. "You see a girl around here?" He didn't answer, just started walking toward me. "Hey man, I'm talking to you," I said, backing up a little. Then another man appeared from the path behind him, coming from the opposite direction. That's when it clicked. This wasn't random. "Shit," I whispered, turning and running. The sound of feet pounding behind me echoed through the trees. I could hear them shouting, one yelling, "Grab her!" Branches scraped my arms as I sprinted down the trail. My phone nearly slipped from my hand. My chest felt like it was going to burst. I could see the parking lot lights ahead. I was so close. Then I felt a hand grab the back of my jacket. I screamed, twisting around, and we both went down hard. I hit the ground, scraping my knee. The guy tried to pin me, but I kicked up as hard as I could and caught him square in the jaw. He let out a grunt and fell sideways. The other one was still running up the trail toward me. I scrambled to my feet and ran like hell. My lungs burned, my leg was bleeding, but adrenaline was all I had. I reached the parking lot just as I saw headlights in the distance. A car was coming down the road. I bolted straight for it, waving my arms. "Help, please!" The car slowed, honking, and the two men stopped chasing. They stood at the edge of the lot, half hidden by trees. The driver's window rolled down slightly. It was a woman, maybe in her 40s. "Are you okay?" she called out. "Call the cops," I yelled. "They're chasing me." She looked behind me, eyes wide. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, shouting the details while keeping my eyes on the trees. The woman stayed in her car, whispering something I couldn't hear. I saw movement in the dark again, then nothing. When I saw police lights flashing 10 minutes later, I almost collapsed with relief. The officers searched the park, and about 20 minutes later, one of them came back and told me they found 3 people, 2 men and a woman. "Your roommate," he said. "She's claiming she didn't know anything. But they found drugs in her bag, and on the guys, and text messages on her phone showing she had planned the whole thing with them. She was supposed to lure me there so they could rob me." I remember sitting in the back of the patrol car that night, staring at her as they walked her past me in handcuffs. She didn't look scared. She didn't even look sorry. Just cold. She met my eyes and said quietly, "It wasn't supposed to go like that." That line still haunts me. The charges didn't stick. The robbery charges were dropped, and she got probation for drug possession. I moved out the next week, changed my number. Sometimes when I drive past Mill Creek Park at night, I still see that flickering light in the corner of the lot, and my heart starts racing again. Because I know she's out there somewhere, and she still knows where I live. I remember that semester so clearly because it almost didn't happen for me. I was in my final year of med school, exhausted, broke, and barely hanging on, but also determined to make it through my internship. My name's Lena, and at that time I was assigned to do my hospital rotation at St. Corvin General, a teaching hospital in a city I'd never lived in before. Most of my classmates were lucky enough to get placed near home, but mine was about 4 hours away. I didn't have relatives there, and the hospital dorms were already full. So like most broke students, I went on a mad search for a cheap but livable place to rent. That's when my friend Riley, another med student from my batch, texted me. "Riley, hey, where'd you get assigned?" Me, "St. Corvin." "Kinda sucks. It's far, Riley." "Wait, same. Want to split rent somewhere close?" It was a relief. I'd known Riley since first year. She was funny, practical, and we'd pulled all-nighters together before. So yeah, I trusted her. We found a place through a Facebook listing, a 2-person boarding room on Ashland Street, a quiet neighborhood just 1 bus stop from the hospital. The landlady, Mrs. Porter, was this older lady who seemed sweet but strict. She said she didn't allow guys visiting overnight and asked us to keep noise down. When we first moved in, everything felt fine. The room was small but clean. White walls, wooden floors, and a bunk bed since it saved space. Riley claimed the lower bunk, and I took the top. The first week went by smoothly. We'd wake up early, walk to the bus stop together, and collapse at night after our shifts. Between long hours and back-to-back patients, we barely talked except for random late-night jokes about how medlife was slowly killing us. But that one week, that one night changed everything. It was a Thursday night, and I was dead tired. The ER had been overflowing all day, and I hadn't eaten properly. Riley texted she was covering an extra shift because one of the interns called in sick. I decided to grab food from the McDonald's nearby. I remember the walk, how humid the air was, how the streetlights buzzed faintly, how my scrubs smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee. When I came back, it was close to 10:30 p.m. The boarding house was quiet. just that faint creak from the hallway as I walked in. I locked the door behind me, climbed up the bunk, and finally laid down. My muscles felt like jelly. I scrolled through Facebook for a few minutes, half-conscious, and sent Riley a message. Me. You coming home tonight? I didn't get a reply right away, so I just kept scrolling through random videos. After about 5 minutes, I heard the door unlock. The click was sharp in the silence. Now I knew I locked it, but Riley had her own key, so I didn't think twice. I just assumed she came back late. The door opened, then closed quietly. The sound of shoes being kicked off, a faint rustle of a plastic bag. The bunk below me moved just slightly. She must have climbed into bed. I didn't look down. I was too tired. Me. Finally done? There was a pause, then her voice came softly from below. Riley. Yeah. Got us some breakfast stuff for tomorrow. I smiled a little, my eyes half shut. Me. Nice. You're the best. We talked for a few minutes, just random small stuff. The new resident doctor who always messed up the charts, the annoying vending machine that kept eating our coins. It was casual, ordinary. Then Riley said quietly, Riley, can you turn the light off? The switch was by the door, like 5 meters away. I groaned. Me. Girl, you're closer. You do it, Riley. I can't. My head's pounding. Her voice was weaker now, strained almost. I sighed, frustrated, and pushed myself up. Me. Fine, I got it. When I sat up, I looked down just to complain again, and froze. The bed below me was empty. The blanket was perfectly folded. Her bag was gone, but I had just been talking to her. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. I leaned over, peered down again. Nothing. I looked toward the bathroom door, open, lights off. Me, quietly. Riley? No answer. My heart started racing. I climbed down slowly, every creak of the ladder echoing in the quiet room. I checked under the bed, the closet, even behind the bathroom door. Empty. My phone suddenly buzzed. I almost dropped it. It was a call. Riley. I answered fast. Me. Where the hell are you? Riley, over noise. Still at the hospital. Sorry, didn't see your message. I'm heading to McDonald's right now. You want anything? Her voice was full of background noise, people talking, dishes clattering. My stomach dropped. Me, whispering. You're not home? Riley. No? Why? I didn't even answer. I just ran. I grabbed my phone, bolted out the door, didn't even bother with shoes. I flew down those narrow stairs, my feet slapping against the cold tile. Mrs. Porter's door creaked open as I passed, but I didn't stop. I ran out into the street gasping, people staring from the 24-hour laundromat across the road. When I finally saw the glowing McDonald's sign down the block, I spotted Riley inside, in her scrubs, holding a paper bag. She looked up and frowned when she saw me. Riley. Lena? Why are you... What happened? I just broke down crying right there. I told her everything, how I heard the door, how I talked to her, how something was in her bed. She thought maybe I'd dreamed it at first until I showed her the call log. I'd talked to her double minutes after that thing spoke to me. We didn't go back that night. We checked into a cheap motel, shared a bed, and neither of us slept. The next morning, we told Mrs. Porter we were leaving. She didn't even look surprised, just pressed her lips together and said quietly, "That room's been empty for months before you girls came." The last one who stayed there, she was a nursing intern too. Poor thing never woke up one morning, that was all she said. Riley and I packed our stuff that same day and found another place near the hospital, even if it cost more. I couldn't bear to sleep in bunk beds again. I always felt like someone was lying below me waiting. Even now back home, sometimes when I'm half asleep, I swear I hear the creak of the bunk, that faint, low voice whispering, "Turn off the lights." I remember the first time I moved to the city. I had just landed my first real job after finishing college, an entry-level position at a marketing firm downtown. Everything felt so new, so loud, so fast. Back in my hometown of Waverly, the loudest thing at night was maybe a cricket outside my window or a passing train. But here, even at 2 a.m., you could still hear sirens echoing down the streets. I didn't know anyone in the city except for one person, Hannah. She was one of my colleagues at work, a bright, kind woman in her early 30s with an easy laugh and a calming presence. Everyone loved her at the office. She was the type who brought donuts on Fridays, always remembered birthdays, and somehow made even the most stressful deadlines bearable. One afternoon after our shift, I was scrolling through apartment listings on my phone, frowning at the insane prices. Hannah noticed and asked, "Still looking for a place, huh?" "Yeah," I sighed. "Everything's either too expensive or sketchy looking." She paused for a second, then said, "You know what? I've got an extra room in my apartment. Well, it's technically my roommate's room, but he's been saying he might move out soon. Why don't you crash in the living room for a few days until you find your own place? I don't mind at all." I hesitated at first. I didn't want to intrude, but Hannah was so insistent and genuine that I finally agreed. I didn't know it back then, but that decision would become one of the most haunting choices of my life. Hannah lived in a 2-story duplex in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of the city. The upstairs part was under renovation, so everything we used was downstairs. There were 2 bedrooms. Hannah's large, cozy one with white curtains and plants everywhere, and the smaller one that belonged to her roommate Caleb. The living room was spacious enough for me to sleep on the couch, and that's where I set up my air mattress. It felt temporary, but safe enough. I met Caleb the same evening I moved in. He came home quietly around 8 p.m., while Hannah and I were setting up my bed. I turned to look and froze for a second. He wasn't what I expected. Caleb was tall but thin, with greasy blonde hair falling into his face. He wore a dark green hoodie and black jeans even though it was sweltering outside. His left eye had a deep scar running through it, starting from his brow down to his cheek. His expression was blank, almost cold. "Hey, Caleb," Hannah said cheerfully. "This is my friend from work, Emily. She's gonna stay for a few days until she finds her place." Caleb's pale eyes flicked toward me. He didn't say a word at first. Then he muttered, "Sure," and walked straight to his room, closing the door with a loud click. I looked at Hannah. "Is he always like that?" She laughed softly. "Nah, he's just quiet. A little awkward. He's been through a lot, I think. But he's harmless." Harmless. That word would echo in my head for months to come. At first, things were fine. Hannah worked long hours, and so did I. So most evenings we were too tired to talk much. Caleb stayed in his room most of the time. I'd hear his door open and close occasionally, but he hardly said anything to either of us. The first time something felt off was about 4 days after I moved in. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. The apartment was dark except for a faint yellow light glowing from the kitchen. I thought maybe Hannah was up late snacking or working. But when I peeked over the couch, I saw Caleb standing by the sink. He wasn't washing dishes. He was scrubbing something small under the faucet, something wrapped in a piece of cloth and then placing it into a plastic grocery bag. I froze. He didn't see me. He finished, tied the bag tightly, and walked back toward his room. The floor creaked as he moved. I heard his door shut and the lock click. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe he was just cleaning something weird. Maybe it was none of my business. But the next night, it happened again. The same smell of bleach filled the air. The same sound of running water. That time, though, he noticed me. "Why are you awake?" His voice came out low, flat, like it didn't belong to a person. I froze on the couch, pretending I had just woken up. I couldn't sleep. Too much coffee, I guess. I tried to sound casual, but my heart was hammering. Caleb tilted his head, studying me. His eyes glinted under the kitchen light. "You should try sleeping," he whispered. "People see things at night that aren't really there." He smiled faintly, if you could even call that a smile, and then leaned closer. Close enough for me to feel his breath. "Good night, Emily." He walked away, leaving me trembling under the blanket. The next morning I told Hannah everything. "Hannah, I'm serious. He's up every night washing something in the sink. I smelled bleach, like industrial-level bleach. And he came up to me last night. It wasn't normal. Hannah frowned. Caleb? No way. He's weird, yeah, but he's not dangerous. I've known him for 2 years, he's never done anything. But you don't know what he's doing at night, I insisted. You sleep through it. She sighed, rubbing her forehead. Emily, I appreciate your concern, but maybe you're just anxious. Big city, new place, strange guy, it's easy to imagine the worst. I'm not imagining this, Hannah, I snapped. I saw it. He's hiding something. Before she could respond, we heard the front door open. Caleb walked in holding a brown paper bag. He smiled too wide. Morning, ladies. Neither of us spoke. Then Hannah, trying to ease the tension, asked lightly, Hey Caleb, what do you do in the kitchen at night anyway? Emily said she's been hearing stuff. He stopped. The smile vanished. His face hardened. Why does that bother your friend? He said slowly. No reason, Hannah said quickly. We were just curious. I wash my clothes, he muttered, in the sink. It's quieter than the machine. You wash your clothes in the kitchen sink? I said before I could stop myself. His head turned sharply toward me, his eyes narrowing. Yeah. Problem? I shook my head. My throat dry. He dropped the bag on the counter and said, Fine. I'll stop. Then he left again, slamming the door behind him. After he left, I told Hannah I wanted to look inside his room. Emily, don't, she said firmly. That's invasion of privacy. Something's wrong with him. I just want to know what. Before she could stop me, I grabbed one of her bobby pins from her dresser and went straight to Caleb's door. It was locked, of course. Emily, stop. Hannah grabbed my wrist. I looked at her desperately. You don't understand. If we don't check now, we might regret it later. She pulled my hand away. No. You're being paranoid. We argued loudly. I ended up storming out of the apartment that night and went to crash at a friend's place. I never went back. 6 months later, I was back home in Waverly when 2 detectives came to my parents' door asking for me. One of them, a tall woman named Detective Larson, showed me her badge and asked, You were living with a woman named Hannah Ward last year? My stomach dropped. Yes. Why? What happened? She's been reported missing, Larson said softly. Her family hasn't heard from her in over 3 months. We found her body 2 days ago under a bridge off Old Creek Road. My knees buckled. I could barely breathe. They said the body was badly decomposed, and it took weeks to identify her. And then they said the name. Her roommate, Caleb Reeves, has been arrested for second-degree murder. My heart stopped. They told me Caleb was the one who had called her parents to report her missing. He'd even joined their search efforts, pretending to care. But his phone's GPS data and receipts placed him near the bridge the night she disappeared. When the cops searched his room, they found multiple bags of blood-stained cloths, sealed with bleach residue. They also found women's jewelry, including Hannah's bracelet, the one she used to wear every day to work. During interrogation, he claimed he found Hannah dead after an argument about rent. He said he panicked and dumped her body because he didn't want to be blamed. He was sentenced to life in prison. I still remember the way he looked at me that night from the kitchen, the sound of bleach swirling in the sink, and I can't stop wondering if I had stayed another week, if I had slept through one more night on that couch, would it have been me instead of Hannah? I never thought sharing a house would mess with my head the way it did. Back in 2018, during my junior year at Ridgeview State University in Oregon, I was in a bit of a mess. I didn't have a place to live for the upcoming semester. My former roommate had dropped out, my girlfriend had transferred, and most of my close friends already signed leases months before. I was stuck between staying in dorms again or taking a gap year. But right around finals week, I ran into this guy named Liam Turner. We'd done a class project together in sophomore year, nothing special. Just one of those split the work and never talk again kinds of things. But out of nowhere, he asked, Hey man, you got a place for next semester? I told him no, and he said, I've got a lease on this old 2-bedroom place near campus. Rent's cheap, but I need a roommate. You in? I didn't think twice. I said, Yeah, sure. It felt like a lucky break. The house was small, old white siding, creaky floors, and a porch that looked like it could collapse under a heavy gust of wind. But it wasn't bad. I'd take it over dorms any day. It was on Holloway Street, a few blocks away from the university. 2 bedrooms upstairs, 1 bathroom up there, and another one downstairs near the kitchen. When I first moved in, Liam helped me carry a few boxes inside. He wasn't exactly talkative, but he wasn't cold either. "You can take the room on the left," he said. "The one on the right gets cold as hell at night." That was it. No small talk, no welcome drink, just business. I figured he was just quiet. I'm kind of quiet myself, so it didn't bother me. Classes started, and for the first month everything was fine. We didn't hang out much, just polite nods in the kitchen or short conversations like, "You got class today?" "Yeah, 10 a.m. You?" "Nah, off day." That was about it. But then, small things started to feel off. The first noise. It was early October, around 2 a.m. I woke up to this repetitive clicking sound like a door creaking open and then closing fast. Over and over. I thought maybe it was the wind, but the sound was too steady. Click, creak, slam, creak, slam. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone flashlight, and walked to the hallway. My room was upstairs, the noise was coming from below. I called out, "Liam, you down there?" No answer. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, everything was silent. Kitchen, empty. Living room, empty. The front door was shut tight. It creeped me out, but I told myself maybe it was just the old wood expanding or something. It was an old house, after all. Next morning, I mentioned it to Liam at breakfast. "Hey, did you hear something last night? Like doors creaking?" He shook his head. "Nah, man. Slept like a rock." I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, guess this house makes weird noises." "Yeah," he said, smiling faintly. "It does that." He said it in a tone that stuck with me like he knew something I didn't. Knocking at 3 amperes. About a week later, I woke up to knocking on my bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. "Liam," I said groggily. Nothing. I waited for a minute, then got up and opened the door. The hallway was dark and empty. I even checked his room. His door was shut, lights off. I didn't want to wake him, so I just went back to bed. It happened again 2 nights later. Same time, same knocks. That next morning, I decided to bring it up. "Dude, did you knock on my door last night?" He looked up from his cereal. "No." "Why would I?" "I don't know. Maybe you needed something." "Man, you're dreaming," he said with a smirk. "You sure you're not sleepwalking?" Something about the way he said it bugged me. The smirk didn't reach his eyes. One night in November, I was studying late for a midterm. It was around 1:30 a.m., and I heard footsteps downstairs. Slow, deliberate. The creaks moved across the living room, paused, and then shifted toward the kitchen. I texted Liam, "Hey, you up?" He replied right away, "Yeah." "You downstairs?" My stomach dropped. "No. Are you?" "No. I thought you were." We both met halfway on the stairs, both holding our phones like weapons. We searched the house from top to bottom, every door locked, every window shut. Nothing. Liam said, "Maybe someone broke in and left." I said, "How? There's no way. The back door's deadbolted. Could have been an animal. Raccoon, maybe. You ever heard a raccoon walk across hardwood floors?" He laughed. "Well, maybe you should sleep with a baseball bat just in case." The way he said it, still half laughing, made it worse somehow. A couple weeks later, things escalated. One night, around 2 a.m., I was dead asleep when my door started slamming. Not knocking, slamming. It shook on the hinges like someone was kicking it. I froze. Couldn't move. It lasted maybe 5 or 6 seconds. Then silence. I didn't go to the door right away. I waited, heart pounding, until I was sure it was over. When I finally opened it, the hallway was pitch black. I could feel cold air rushing past my legs, like someone had just been standing there. That morning I asked Liam again, "Man, I'm serious. Did you mess with me last night?" He frowned. What are you talking about? Someone slammed my door. Hard. He shrugged. Maybe you dreamed it again. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. I started keeping a chair under my doorknob at night. 2 days later, I got a Snapchat ad from a guy named Riley Bowman. He went to our school. I'd seen him around with Liam a few times at parties, but we'd never talked. When I added him back, he immediately messaged me. Yo, you live with Liam Turner, right? Yeah. Why? We used to hang out. Listen, bro. Has he been doing weird shit at the house? That caught me off guard. What do you mean? Like noises, doors, knocking, that kind of thing? Yeah, actually, how'd you know? Because he told me. Dude thinks it's funny. He's been doing that to you for weeks. My blood went cold. You serious? Dead serious. He did that to another guy he lived with sophomore year. He gets a kick out of scaring people. He even said he hoped you'd move out so he could get the whole house to himself. I didn't even know what to say. Riley sent another message. He used to ask me to help him too. One night I actually came over and we made noises in the kitchen while he texted the dude upstairs, but we stopped being friends after that. He's got issues, man. I just sat there staring at my phone. That meant the night both Liam and I heard footsteps downstairs, he was pretending the whole time. I felt sick. Next morning, I waited until he came downstairs. He looked half asleep, hair messy, holding a cup of coffee. I said, "We need to talk." He looked at me. About what? About all the shit you've been pulling. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The noises. The knocking. Everything. You're losing it, dude. Riley told me. He said you bragged about it. About how you were trying to freak me out. His expression changed immediately, went blank. Then he smirked. Man, you believe everything you hear? So you're saying he's lying? He's got beef with me. He's just trying to stir shit. I stared at him. So you didn't do it? He shrugged. Maybe once or twice. As a joke. But damn, didn't know you were that jumpy. He laughed, actually laughed, and walked past me into the kitchen. That was the moment I realized I couldn't live there anymore. The house felt different after that heavy. Every creak felt like him watching me, waiting for a reaction. I started locking my door every night, even though the lock barely worked. One night, I woke up around 1 a.m. and heard soft whispers in the hallway. Couldn't make out the words. Then a light tapping sound like fingers drumming on wood. I sat up, turned on my lamp, and said loudly, "Liam, knock it off." Silence. Then, faintly, I heard, "You're no fun anymore." It was his voice. That was it for me. I packed my stuff the next morning and told him I was leaving. He didn't argue, just smirked and said, "Guess you couldn't handle it, huh?" I stayed with a friend off campus for the rest of the semester. A few weeks later, Liam moved out too. Word got around that he transferred schools mid-year. Riley later told me he'd done the same kind of crap to another roommate at his new place. Only that guy called the cops after Liam started sneaking into his room at night while he was asleep. I still get chills thinking about how long I lived in that house, how close he was every night, listening, watching, playing his little game. And the worst part? Sometimes, even now, when I'm trying to sleep in a new apartment, I swear I hear it again, 3 slow knocks. I never thought the quiet job I took that fall would be the reason I can't sleep at night anymore. Back then, I was 27, recently divorced, broke, and desperate for something steady. My cousin told me about this small residential boarding home outside of Eugene, Oregon, a 2-story colonial-style house that looked sweet and harmless from the outside. It was called Willow Rest Home. The ad said, "Room and meals included, seeking live-in help for cleaning and light caregiving. Must be reliable and compassionate." That word compassionate stuck out to me. I'd worked in diners and cleaned Airbnbs, so taking care of old folks didn't sound bad. At least it was quiet. The owners were 2 elderly women, Edna and Marlene. They'd been friends for decades, or that's what they said. Edna was technically the owner, her name was on the deed, but Marlene handled most of the daily stuff. Edna was in her late 70s, frail and soft-spoken, with a white bun and shaky hands. Marlene, on the other hand, was about 65, sharp-eyed, brisk, and always talking about managing the place efficiently. The boarding home housed 7 residents, all older or disabled people who couldn't live completely on their own. Each room had 2 beds, except the top floor, which was where Edna and Marlene lived together. I remember thinking it was odd they shared a room when the upstairs had 2 empty bedrooms, but I didn't ask. The day I started, Marlene gave me a quick tour. "This is the kitchen, please label everything you cook. The fridge on the left is for staff, the right one for residents. Don't get that mixed up, Honorable." "Got it," I said, trying to keep up as she moved fast down the narrow hallway. "You'll mop every evening after supper, vacuum on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and check that everyone has their laundry done. The old-timers can get cranky if their clothes go missing." She smiled when she said that, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was tight, businesslike. Edna came hobbling out of the den when we passed. "Oh, is this our new helper?" she asked softly. "Yes, this is Lila," Marlene said. "She's going to keep the place tidy." Edna smiled kindly. "Welcome, dear. It's nice to have another friendly face around here." There was something sad in her eyes, like she wanted to say more but couldn't. My first week was uneventful. The house was old but cozy, with creaky floors and faded floral curtains. The residents were mostly quiet. There was Mr. Harrison, who used a walker but loved telling war stories. Anita, a sweet woman who talked to her deceased husband every morning. And Dale, a younger man in his 40s with mild developmental disabilities who collected baseball cards. Marlene ran the place like a ship captain. She was up at 5 a.m., yelling for everyone to come to breakfast, then barking at me to wipe down tables faster. "Efficiency, Lila. Efficiency," she'd say, snapping her fingers. Edna, meanwhile, mostly stayed upstairs. Some days I'd see her come down for lunch, pale and sweating, trembling as she held the banister. She'd barely eat before rushing back up again. "You okay, Miss Edna?" I asked one afternoon. She smiled weakly. "Oh, I just get these spells sometimes. Marlene takes good care of me. She gives me my shots and makes sure I rest." "Shots?" "For my allergies," she said. "Nothing serious." But her eyes flickered away when she said it. One rainy evening, I was mopping the hallway when I heard coughing on the stairs. I looked up and saw Edna sitting halfway down, clutching her chest. "Miss Edna, you okay?" She tried to wave me off but looked dizzy. "I just need my injection. Marlene's gone to town to pick up groceries. I can't wait that long." I hesitated. "I'm not a nurse, ma'am." "It's easy," she whispered. "It's in the top drawer. Just give it in the arm, please." I helped her to the room upstairs. It was dim, with old wallpaper and a single lamp. 2 twin beds sat side by side. The one near the window was Edna's. The one closer to the door had a stack of papers, pill bottles, and what looked like checkbooks. I found the syringe in a small medical pouch labeled prednisol steroid injection. Her name was written on the vial, so I figured it was fine. I did it carefully, like I'd seen nurses do when my dad was sick years ago. After a few minutes, her breathing eased. She smiled faintly. "You're an angel. Thank you." "No problem," I said, "but you should probably have a doctor check you. Marlene handles that. She used to be a nurse's aide, you know." I nodded but kept noticing the smell of antiseptic and something metallic in the air. As I was straightening the blanket, I said lightly, "Why do you both share this room? There's 2 more up here, right?" She hesitated. "I prefer not to be alone. I get night terrors sometimes." Before I could ask more, the front door slammed downstairs. "Edna," Marlene's voice thundered. "Where are you?" She appeared seconds later, glaring at me like I'd robbed the place. "What the hell are you doing up here?" Edna wasn't feeling well, so I told you no staff upstairs. "Hey, calm down," I said. She asked for help. I just gave her shot. Marlene's eyes went wide for a split second before she regained composure. "You what?" I gave her the injection in the drawer. Her voice softened. "Oh, right. Thank you for that." But there was tension in her shoulders, and when she helped Edna lie down, she turned to me and said sweetly, "Next time, Just come get me, okay? Some of those meds aren't what they look like. The way she said it sent a chill up my neck. Days went by, and I started noticing weird things. Marlene always handled the mail. Residents would ask about their social security checks, and she'd say, "Don't worry, I deposit them for you." Once, I saw her stuffing a few envelopes into her purse before heading out. Then there was the cash. I caught her one night sneaking into the kitchen, barefoot, with a flashlight. She bent under the sink cabinet and pulled out a plastic grocery bag, then carefully unwrapped newspaper bundles from it. I saw flashes of green money. She froze when she heard a creak. Her flashlight beam swept across the kitchen and landed right on me. "Jesus, Lila," she hissed. "You trying to give me a heart attack?" "I just came for water," I muttered. "Then get your water and go to bed." I watched her stare at me for a long second before she shoved the bag back under the cabinet. When she finally left, I waited a minute, then crouched down and checked. The bag was full of cash, thousands, easily. That's when the pit in my stomach turned to dread. A few weeks later, Edna's condition got worse. She could barely get out of bed. Marlene said she'd called a doctor, but I never saw one come. Then one morning, Marlene came down with red-rimmed eyes and said flatly, "Edna passed in her sleep." The house went silent. Some residents cried softly. Others just stared at their plates. I asked, "Did you call the coroner?" "It's taken care of," she said. "She had a DNR order, natural causes. The funeral home will pick her up tonight." But something in her tone didn't sit right with me. That night, as the hearse pulled away, I stood in the rain watching from the porch. Marlene came out behind me, smoking a cigarette. "Sad, huh?" she said. "We were friends for 30 years. Guess it's just me now." She smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't match the smile. After Edna's death, Marlene became a different person. She started redecorating the upstairs, renting the spare rooms to new tenants, and snapping at everyone constantly. "Don't waste food. Everything costs money. Lights off by 10. Don't question me about the mail." Then the disappearances started. The first was Dale, the guy with the baseball cards. He told me one afternoon that his sister mailed him a $300 check. 2 days later, he asked Marlene if it arrived. She said, "No check this month." But I'd seen her earlier with his mail, tucking something into her cardigan pocket. That night, I heard digging sounds in the backyard. Scrape, pause, scrape. I peeked out my window. There she was, Marlene, kneeling by the far fence, a flashlight in her mouth, shoveling dirt. When she turned her head, the beam caught her face, and for a split second, our eyes met. Her mouth stretched into this horrible grin. Thin lips, yellow teeth, eyes wild. I ducked instantly, heart hammering. I stayed crouched by the wall until dawn. The next morning, Dale was gone. "Where's Dale?" I asked casually at breakfast. Marlene shrugged, said he was moving in with his sister, packed his things and left. I glanced toward his room. The bed was stripped bare, and the sheets smelled faintly of bleach. I started documenting things secretly, writing notes in my phone, snapping quick photos when she wasn't looking. I knew something evil was happening. Then came the night she snapped. It was close to midnight. I was heading to my room when she appeared at the end of the hall, blocking my way. "You been watching me?" she asked softly. "What?" "Don't play dumb, sweetheart. You're always snooping. You think I don't notice when someone touches my things?" "Marlene, you're scaring me." "Good. Maybe you should be scared." I turned to walk away, but she lunged, biting my cheek so hard I screamed. I felt skin tear, blood gush down my face. I shoved her off and ran toward the front door, yelling for help. The commotion woke the residents. One of them, Mr. Harrison, hobbled out, shouting, "Somebody call 911. Our neighbor, hearing the chaos, dialed it before I could. When the cops arrived, Marlene was sitting on the stairs, covered in my blood, muttering to herself. They arrested her for assault. But once police started searching the property, things got much darker. In the backyard, behind the lilac bushes, they found disturbed soil. Within hours, the place was swarming with detectives, reporters, and flashing lights. They dug up 7 bodies, all buried with small personal items, a pair of glasses, a ring, a wallet. 2 were identified as missing residents from the previous year. Another was an elderly woman whose family had been told she died of heart failure. And at the bottom of the last pit, wrapped in plastic, was Edna. She'd been poisoned. The cause was high doses of medication similar to the injections she'd been getting. Marlene had forged documents, cashed Social Security checks, and pocketed life insurance payouts. I went to the courthouse months later for her trial. She looked smaller somehow, sitting behind the glass. Her hair was white now, her hands shaking. For a brief second, I thought maybe she felt remorse. But when I stepped closer, she looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "You should have minded your business, Lila. You were next." That voice, calm, casual, still crawls under my skin whenever I hear someone whisper behind me. Sometimes I wake at night to the sound of digging, faint but real, and I swear I can smell the soil of that backyard again. The boarding house was torn down 2 years later. They built a new duplex on the lot, but every time I drive past that street, I can't help but glance toward where the garden used to be, because no matter how much time passes, part of me still hears her whisper, "I should have poisoned you too." I never thought I'd look back on that year and still feel my skin crawl. It started the summer I turned 22, the same summer I moved to Oregon for college. I'd been accepted into a transfer program at Willamette Valley University, and I was desperate to get out of my hometown in Arizona. I wanted to start over, to meet new people, to finally feel like I had some kind of adult life. But moving out of state isn't cheap. I was scraping by on what little savings I had from my part-time job at a gas station, and what my mom could help with. So when I found a Craigslist ad for a room in a 2-bedroom apartment that was not only affordable but just 15 minutes from campus, I jumped on it. The ad said, $550 divided by month, utilities included, female roommate preferred, clean, quiet, drama-free, text for photos. I texted right away. A few minutes later, I got a response. Her. "Hey, I'm Callie. The room's still available. You can come check it out today if you want." Me. "Perfect, thanks. What time works for you?" Her. "Any time after 4. She even added a little smiley face. That somehow made her seem friendly, normal. I figured this might be my lucky break. I got there around 4:30. The apartment was part of a 3-story beige building tucked behind a strip mall that had a 7-Eleven, a laundromat, and a small pizza place. Not fancy, but not sketchy either, just typical college town stuff. Callie opened the door before I could even knock. She was taller than me, maybe 5'9", with jet black hair that reached her shoulders. She wore dark eyeliner that made her gray-blue eyes pop, and had this pale, powdered look, like she'd just stepped out of an old photograph. "Hey, you must be Laurel," she said, smiling wide. "Yeah, thanks for letting me come by." "No problem at all," she said, stepping aside. Come in. Ignore the boxes I'm still cleaning from my last roommate." The place was actually cute. There was a small living room with a second-hand couch and a coffee table that had seen better days. The kitchen was tiny, with peeling white cabinets and a faint smell of vanilla-scented candles. I liked it. It felt lived in. She showed me the room, plain but bright. A decent closet, carpeted floor, and a window that faced a maple tree. "It's $600 including everything," she said. "But if you pay on time, I'll drop it to $550. I couldn't believe it. "Seriously?" "Yeah. I'd rather have someone reliable than chase people for money." That was it. I moved in the next week. At first, Callie was quirky, but harmless. She was quiet most of the time and kind of awkward, but nice enough. The first night after I moved in, she suggested we grab pizza at the little place downstairs. I figured it was a good idea, roommates should get along, right? We ordered a medium pepperoni and sat in a booth near the window. "So, what are you studying?" she asked, taking a sip of her soda. "Psychology," I said. "You?" "I'm done with school. I do graphic design, freelance mostly, from home." "Oh, that's cool." She smiled, leaning forward slightly. "You know, you kind of remind me of someone." "Oh?" She squinted, studying my face. Yeah, you look so much like young Brad Pitt. I laughed. I wish. No, really, she said seriously. It's uncanny. The jawline, the nose, even the hair. You could be his double in Legends of the Fall. I just chuckled and changed the topic, but she wasn't kidding. She kept bringing it up. Throughout dinner, she mentioned it 5 or 6 times. Every time I'd laugh awkwardly, she'd giggle this high-pitched, almost childlike laugh and say, "No, seriously, it's freaking me out." I figured maybe she was just one of those people who says weird stuff when nervous. But it stuck in my head. A few nights later, she offered to show me the rest of the apartment. Her art stuff. Some of her projects. I said sure. Curious. Her bedroom door was closed most of the time. When she opened it, this wave of sweet perfume hit me strong. Artificial. Like cheap roses and vanilla. I froze at what I saw. Her walls were covered with photos of Brad Pitt. Posters, magazine cutouts, even printed screenshots from his movies. She had one big framed photo above her bed, him from Fight Club, shirtless, mid-punch. "Oh wow," I said, trying to sound casual. "You're a big fan, huh?" She smiled, looking at the photo. "I've been watching his movies since I was like 12. He's perfect." Her tone made my stomach turn a little. There was no irony, no humor, just devotion. She turned back to me suddenly. "See what I mean now?" "What?" "You look just like him." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, maybe if you squint." Her smile widened. "No, Laurel. I mean it." There was something in her voice, low, serious. I pretended not to notice and excused myself to grab some water. That night, I couldn't sleep. I could still smell that perfume in the hallway. Over the next few weeks, things got weirder. Callie barely talked to me anymore. She'd come home from somewhere, slip straight into her room, and I'd hear her laugh, that same high-pitched giggle, muffled through the wall. Sometimes she'd whisper to herself. At least, that's what it sounded like, murmuring, then giggling again. Once, I was sitting on the couch doing homework, and I turned to grab my drink. She was just standing there in the hallway. I jumped. "Jesus, Callie, you scared me." She didn't say anything right away, just that small smile. "I like your hair down," she finally said. "You really do look like him when you wear it that way." Thanks." She gave a little giggle and went into her room, shutting the door softly. I sat there for a long time, heart still racing. The night at 2 a.m. It was about 3 weeks later when things escalated. I woke up around 2 in the morning to this metallic clinking sound. At first, I thought it was from outside, maybe someone at the vending machine near the building entrance. But then I realized it was coming from inside our apartment. The sound of the deadbolt turning. I grabbed my phone and quietly opened my bedroom door. The hallway was pitch dark, but I could make out Callie's silhouette near the front door. She had her face pressed against it, whispering something as she turned the lock back and forth. "Callie?" I said softly. No response. I took a step closer. "Are you okay?" She stopped twisting the lock and went completely still. Then, without turning her body, she slowly rotated her head toward me. In the faint glow from the streetlight outside, I saw her eyes wide, glassy, and unblinking. "Callie, what the hell are you doing?" She blinked once. "I was making sure he doesn't leave." "Who?" Her lips twitched into that giggle again. "Brad." I froze. "What?" "He's here," she whispered. "He comes to visit sometimes. But he keeps trying to leave." I just stood there, not sure what to say. Finally, she turned back to the door and began humming softly to herself. I locked my door that night and didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I texted my friend Megan. "Me. I think my roommate's losing it. I need to get out." "Megan. What happened?" "Me. Long story. Can I crash with you for a few days?" She said yes. I decided I'd pack and leave by the weekend. Callie barely came out of her room that day. I could hear her pacing and muttering. That evening, while I was making toast, she suddenly walked into the kitchen. "Going somewhere?" she asked. My stomach dropped. Yeah. My friend's birthday. I might stay over." She smiled faintly. "You should stay home. He doesn't like when people leave." "Who doesn't?" She just giggled and went back to her room. That was it. I texted Megan to come get me first thing in the morning. The next day, around 9 a.m., there was a knock on the door. I thought it was Megan, but when I opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood there. "Morning, ma'am," one said. "Does a Callie Monroe live here?" "Yes," I said, startled. "Why? What's going on? Mind if we come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. One of them looked around the apartment, then back at me. "We have a warrant for her arrest. We believe she may be connected to a homicide that took place last year. Do you know where she is right now?" I shook my head, stunned. "She's in her room, I think." Just then, there was a sharp crash, the sound of glass shattering. The officers drew their weapons and ran toward her door. "Callie, open the door," one shouted. No response. They kicked the door repeatedly until it finally splintered open. I followed them instinctively, but what I saw made me gag. Her window was wide open, the curtains flapping wildly. She was gone, and in her closet a foul smell hit me like a brick wall. One of the officers opened the door slowly, and I saw it. A human hand sticking out from under a blanket. Rotten. Discolored. The officer yelled, "We need backup and forensics now." I couldn't breathe. I stumbled backward, shaking. Underneath that blanket was a man's body, decomposed, with a paper mask on his face, a mask printed with Brad Pitt's picture. The coroner confirmed later that his name was Ben Carter, her previous roommate. They sealed the apartment as a crime scene. I was questioned for hours. That night, I stayed in a motel across town. My hands were still trembling as I called my mom and told her everything. She cried. I did too. For days afterward, every time I closed my eyes, I saw her pale face turning toward me in the dark. 3 days later, I was waiting for the bus near campus, trying to pull myself together. As I looked across the street, my heart nearly stopped. A woman was standing by the corner, wearing jeans, a gray hoodie, and a Brad Pitt mask. Even from that distance, I knew it was her. I grabbed my phone and called the police immediately. But by the time they arrived, she was gone. A few weeks later, I moved again, this time across the state. I thought maybe I could finally start over. Then one morning, I was driving to work and saw flashing lights ahead. Police cars, a crowd of people standing near a massive movie billboard that hung above Main Street. It was for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. As I slowed down, I saw what everyone was looking at and my blood went cold. It was Callie. Her body hung tangled in the power lines near the billboard. Her clothes were torn, her skin burned and blackened, her face frozen in a twisted smile. The wind made her body sway slowly back and forth, right under the giant face of Brad Pitt. That night, I sat in my car outside my new apartment, unable to move. I kept hearing her giggle, echoing in my head, that shrill, haunting laugh that used to seep through the walls. Sometimes I still dream about it, waking up to the sound of the lock turning, the faint scent of cheap perfume, and her whispering softly through the dark. "He's here, don't let him leave." I never use Craigslist anymore, and I'll never forget the way she smiled when she said I looked just like him.